Roll call in about 30 seconds. Good morning and welcome to the January 20th, 2021 edition of Community and Public Services Committee. I now call the meeting to order and we'll start with a roll call of the committee members. Councillor Zadek, I see you there. Good morning.
Good morning.
Councillor Knack, hello.
Yes, good morning.
And Councillor Nickel, good morning.
Good morning.
Okay, we're also joined by a few other councillors today and I hope I can see them all. I see Councillor Tim Cartmel, how are you?
Good, thank you. Good morning.
Morning. And Councillor McKean, looking resplendent. How are you? Very good. And is there anyone I'm missing? Councillor Henderson has just joined. Good morning, Councillor Henderson.
Morning.
Okay. So, at this point, let us move to the adoption of the agenda. Someone please move the adoption of today's agenda.
Mm-hmm.
All right, thank you, Councillor Knack. I suppose we need to have our devices booted up to vote, but I think that I'll just get a vote of dissension. Is there anyone opposed to adopting the agenda? Not hearing any? Okay. And let us now move to the adoption of the minutes. And would someone please move the adoption of the minutes?
Yes, Mr. Chair, I'll move the adoption of the December 2nd, 2020 Community and Public Services Committee meeting minutes.
Okay. Councillor Knack, was that you?
Yeah, correct.
That's very surprising. Okay. Any opposition or anyone opposed to the adoption of the minutes? Not hearing any. Do we have any protocol items today? All right, I didn't think so either. And so before we move, before we go to selecting items for debate, I will just reiterate that we are happy and grateful to be here in Edmonton sharing this land with which are the traditional lands of many Indigenous groups who have passed through this way and who currently live here today. This Treaty 6 territory is one that we all share and hope to make a brighter and better city and place for all. All right, so thank you for that. And now for items for debate. Anyone? Yeah, go ahead, Councillor Knack.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I believe we have speakers for items 6.3, 6.4, and like I say, 1 is motion pending, so it's already there. So I'll select those 3.
Yep, that's right. Okay, so item 6.3, 6.4. Anyone else? I think that we may have speakers as well on, nope, that's it. Okay, so any other items to select? Not hearing any. Okay, so, and so let's vote on the reports not selected for debate. I'm not sure if I'm logged in or not. It looks like I am. Should we try this, clerks?
Yes, please. If we could try a vote, that would be great.
Okay. Oh, I'm telling it's telling me that my login is not, I don't know what the issue is. So I'm a yes.
We'll just need a mover, please.
So moved, Zadek.
Oh, yeah. Thank you, Councillor Zadek. So please vote if you haven't already.
We have all the votes.
And display the votes. And that is carried. I'm going to assume. I didn't see them come up.
Yes, it did carry 4-0.
Okay. Thank you very much. Okay. So, as noted, we do have, actually, can you read that back to us just so we've got a record?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This morning, committee has passed the following items without debate. We have revised due dates for the following reports. Item 5.1, Hope Mission Project Update, February 17th, 2021. 5.2, Traffic Bylaw Changes, Bicycle Safety Passing Protocols, February 17, 2021. 5.3, Vehicle Noise Enforcement Pilot Program Results and Next Steps, February 17, 2021. 5.4, Joint Dispatch Center Project Charter, March 3rd, 2021. 5.5, Baldwin Belvedere and Inglewood Financial Outlook, April 14, 2021. Item 5.6, State of Immigration and Settlement in Edmonton Annual Report, May 14, 2021. And the recommendations in the following reports have been approved. Item 6.1, Heritage Community Investment Program Operational Grant Results, 2021. And item 6.2, Edmonton Federation of Community Leagues, request to reallocate council-approved funds. And both of those reports will be going up to council for final approval.
Okay, thank you for that. Well, as mentioned, we do have some requests to speak. Would anyone like to read those in? No? Okay, I will myself. Okay, so the recommendation is that the Community and Public Services Committee hear from the following speakers in panel when appropriate. Item 6.3, Canada Basketball Sponsorship Update. And we've got Glenn Grunwald from Canada Basketball, Denise Dignard from Canada Basketball, or Dignard, please correct me, Isabelle Ormond, Canada Basketball, and Paul Sir, Canada Basketball and Alberta Basketball Association. For item 6.4, the Orange Hub Immediate Financial Needs Verbal Report, we have Todd James of the Orange Hub Tenants Association and other wonderful organizations. And we've got Kara Bedford from the Orange Hub Tenant Association and Gateway Courses. All right, and on 8.1, on a motion to be made, we've got from the Shisha Lounge Establishments, Malat Belit, Mohammed El Turk from the Edmonton Hookah Cultural Committee, and Jarrett Campbell from the Edmonton Hookah Cultural Committee. And that's what I've got on my list.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And if I may just interrupt for a second, we did make a misstep on adoption of the agenda, and item 6.2 is actually before you with a request to delete. So if after voting on the motion for the speakers, if we could just clean that up, please.
Yep, before we make that motion, can we go ahead and get someone move that, please?
So moved.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Knack. Please vote. That was in the back of my mind, and I was thinking, this is not a good day to quit coffee.
We have all the votes.
All right, thank you. And display the vote. And that is carried. Okay, and now to vote on the items, the request to speak. Please vote. And that was moved by, I believe, by Councillor Knack. I don't see the vote popping up. So I'm a yes.
Just one moment, it's coming your way. And to confirm, Councillor Paquette, I believe you moved the request to speak?
Oh yeah, I did, that's right.
Thank you.
Thanks.
We have all the votes.
All right, display the vote. And that is carried. Okay, so I didn't see any requests for specific time on agenda. And I guess we might as well just move into it. I think the first thing on the agenda then would be item 6.3. Is that correct?
That's correct.
That's what I have. Okay. And does administration have a presentation for that?
Mr. Chair, we do have a short verbal presentation. I'll introduce it. So our delegation this morning is made up of Mr. Jevney, our branch manager of Community and Recreation Facilities in Citizen Services Department. And also joining us is Rana Bremer, our Director of Partnerships and Event Strategy in that same branch. So I'll pass it over to Mr. Jevney, who has a short verbal presentation for committee this morning. Roger.
Thanks, Rob. Good morning, everyone. Edmonton's connection with women's basketball dates back to the Edmonton Grads team that dominated the sport globally from 1915 to 1940. In an effort to build on that legacy, the City of Edmonton, Canada Basketball, and Alberta Basketball set out in 2012 to make Edmonton the official home of the women's national senior team. As part of that vision, the City of Edmonton has provided $500,000 annually in a sponsorship in return for a number of outcomes, including hosting the team's training camps in Edmonton at the Saville Centre, hosting national and international competitions in the city, recognizing the city's contribution through efforts such as Edmonton's name on the back of team jerseys, promotion on Canada Basketball's website and the social media forum, and growth of the grassroots game through programming and participation of the team, the Canada Basketball, Alberta Basketball officials, especially in marginalized areas of the city. In the first 7 years of the agreement, Edmonton hosted the FIBA America's Cup, an Olympic qualifier, 3 Edmonton Grads Classics, and the 2019 Olympic pre-qualifier, which provided a collective estimated economic return of $8 million. These events also provided both national broadcast coverage, with the Olympic events also earning international coverage. We saw significant increases in the participation of basketball with targeted programs aimed at girls and inner-city population. From 2018 to 2019 alone, participation numbers increased more than 50%, over 6,000 children and youth participating in such programs as the Inner-City Youth Program. The current 4-year agreement was set to expire on March 31st, 2021. However, when the pandemic began last March, Canada Basketball and Alberta Basketball had to quickly move their support online for participants and also hosted other programs, including a session in the fall focusing on women. During these efforts, it was widely recognized by all partners that the desired outcomes were not achieved. And as a result, we agreed to extend the current agreement to December 31st, 2021, so that Edmonton would see a stronger return on its investment. If possible, the plan is to resume the training camps at the Saville Centre this year, as well as hosting the FIBA America Cup, an Olympic qualifier for women's basketball leading up to the 2024 Olympics. Alberta Basketball is also anxious to resume its local programming as part of the agreement and ensure the significant strides made in recent years can continue. The report before you today is for information and provides details on the agreement and the impacts on our community. The attached 2019 report from Canada Basketball and Alberta Basketball offers further details on their efforts before the pandemic, and the representatives from both organizations are here to speak today. As I noted earlier, this is the final year of the current agreement, and there's no funding in place to continue for future years. Despite the agreement coming to an end, we intend to continue to work with Canada Basketball and Alberta Basketball to attract basketball events to the city as part of the Edmonton Event Program and to support youth basketball programming. And we would be pleased to answer any questions you have following presentations from the speakers.
Okay, thank you for that. We will then open the floor to our speakers. So, Madam Clerk, if you could line that up for us. I believe we've got Glenn Grunwald. And if you are here, Mr. Grunwald, the floor is yours for the next 5 minutes.
Thank you. And thank you to the committee for giving us this opportunity to update you and thank the City of Edmonton for all they've done for us. My name is Glenn Grunwald, and I'm the President and CEO of Canada Basketball, and I've been in this position for a little over 2 years now. And I first came to Canada in 1994 to be one of the first employees for the Toronto Raptors when they were an expansion franchise in the NBA. And I've seen the growth of basketball and the importance of it in our communities. And I've seen what we can do here in Edmonton, and we're very thankful for the support we received from the City of Edmonton, from Explore Edmonton, from Basketball Alberta, from the Edmonton Grad Youth Basketball Association, and many other community members. It's really benefited our organization, this partnership with the City of Edmonton. We've risen in the worldwide rankings from 11th to number 4 in the world right now. And we are definitely medal contenders for the Tokyo Olympics this year. And I look forward to returning to Edmonton in September to have a parade to celebrate our medal, hopefully a gold medal, when we accomplish our goals. But I also want to talk about basketball and its growth. Like I said, I came here for the Raptors, and I've seen the catalytic effect that the Raptors have had on the growth of basketball to build upon what was already here in Canada, which was already a well-established sport. But with the Edmonton grads and other great organizations, we've seen the growth of basketball now. So now basketball is the most popular sport amongst young people. It's the most participated sport amongst girls, and it's the most popular sport amongst newcomers to Canada. And we want to continue to build upon that opportunity and that growth in the City of Edmonton to help bring your community together and make people more active and get kids involved, and particularly keeping girls involved in sport, because we know how important that is and how difficult it can be. So I will leave it to Denise to talk about a little bit more. Denise is the head of our Women's High Performance Program, Denise Dignard, and she's done a tremendous job, and I'm very proud to work with Denise. If you have any questions for me now, or I can wait until after the presentations. So again, thank you for the opportunity, and I look forward to continuing to work together with the City of Edmonton and our partners here.
Thank you, and gold in the future would be wonderful. Denise Dignard, and please correct me on the pronunciation of your last name.
In English, it's Dignard. In French,
Dignard.
it's Dignard. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. The floor is yours.
Thank you for this opportunity to speak. I go way back in the sport of basketball. It has transformed my life as a young person from northern Quebec, a town of 7,000 people, and I've been all over the world, having been one of the third Canadian female to ever go play professionally, and playing and representing our country, and being so excited about the opportunity that we had a number of years ago in 2013 to kind of build on the legacy of the Edmonton Grads. So since 2013, the City of Edmonton has truly been a home away from home for our senior team. You know, for many of our players who play professionally around the world, Edmonton becomes a second home during the summers as they continue their training and development. In the past, we used to be in university residences and go from city to city. And it's just really neat to see the women come to Edmonton and just say that this is like home, and for them to speak about it while they're everywhere across the world. Additionally, having a consistent hosting partner in the City of Edmonton has allowed our team the invaluable experience of proudly representing their country at home in front of incredible Edmonton fans, family, and friends. In the past, we never played in Canada, until very recent years. So with the team of volunteers and staff on the ground, we've hosted 5 senior women's international events over a 6-year period. And it was indicated that we hosted the 2015 FIBA America Championship for women. And there were like 15,000 spectators, 108,000 television viewers for Canada's games. We were the most watched sport at the Rio Olympics in terms of Canadian teams. The women's basketball was. So we do certainly have an ability to really make an impact on people. One of the phrases that's often mentioned by our team members is, "You can't be what you can't see." And it really speaks to the need for strong female role models. By bringing the senior team to Edmonton, we believe that we've inspired the next generation of basketball players and their families to encourage them to pick up the game, and also inspired future female leaders with a lot of the activities that we've done. Our partnership with the City of Edmonton is truly unique, not only within the Canadian sports landscape, but also in North America and worldwide, and has allowed our team to reach new heights. Our players wear the City of Edmonton logo on their jerseys with such pride, and they value that historical connection to the Edmonton grads, and also honoring those who came before them and have paved the way for them. Support of the City of Edmonton has allowed our team to increase the training days, the number of athletes we've brought in, the number of exhibition competition that we can play. Has also allowed us to make key performance-related changes to create what we call a world-class environment and make really innovative advances. And all of these have directly contributed to our continuous improvement year after year, and the recent success and historical firsts that we've seen on the international stage over the last 8 years. We're proud of what's been achieved to date in legacy and capacity building in Edmonton as well. Our staff has shared best practices and contributed to the professional development and training of local expertise in the coaches, in coaching certification learning facilitators, which gives Alberta Basketball that capacity to continually certify and train coaches, as well as officials and volunteers for events. In addition to the on-court success we've experienced, our biggest impact, in my mind, has been also coming off court, in the community. From the numerous school visits, post-game and post-practice autograph sessions, attending the Remembrance Day ceremonies at City Hall, to visiting the troops at CFB Edmonton. Our team has become an important part of the city. During this pandemic, our staffs had to pivot to virtual platforms to continue to deliver programming that inspires athletes, coaches, and others. And so since May, we've done several online sessions, maybe 1 to 5 per week, including sessions with some of the Alberta athletes and coaches, with our women's national team players doing a Q&A. We're talking about the long-term athlete development model with the coaches, doing some mental health education, doing women in coaching sessions, as well as tremendous number of coaching professional development sessions. We also did sessions with the Alberta targeted athletes, which our next speaker, Isabelle Armand, has overseen this program and on the stages of leadership. And as was alluded to, we ran a panel on empowering women to lead in 2020, and we had over 100 participants, and over 40% were directly from Edmonton. While we're focused right now on preparing for the Tokyo Olympics, we're also preparing for Paris. And so with the continued support of the City of Edmonton, the lead up to that event, we firmly believe we can achieve our podium aspirations. So want to extend our gratitude for the tremendous support that we've received from the City of Edmonton, and we look forward to coming back to Edmonton for years to come.
Well said. Thank you very much. And I will just inform you, I've just been notified that President Biden has been sworn in as new president in the United States of America. Okay, let's move on to Isabelle Armand.
Great, thank you.
5 minutes, and I'll be keeping a timer. So if you have one as well, that would be wonderful. Go ahead.
Excellent. Good morning, everybody. My name is Isabelle Armand. I'm currently a PhD student in coaching and sports psychology at the University of Alberta, and my research is focused on positive youth development through sport, including the positive developmental outcomes from high-performance environments. In addition to my studies, as Denise mentioned, I'm involved as a basketball coach ranging from summer camps to university athletics. A few notable items include assistant coach of the University of Alberta Pandas, head coach of Alberta's U15 girls provincial team, head coach of a local U17 team, and an apprentice coach for the U19 women's national team. My involvement in sport continues as a current player within a women's recreational league hosted by the Edmonton Basketball Association. So my wide-ranging experiences in sport give me a unique perspective to kind of advocate for Canada's basketball continued growth in Edmonton. I'm fortunate to have the opportunity to teach undergraduates at the U of A. During one of my sports sociology classes of approximately 150 students, the class was asked to name the most winningest teams in sport. So answers ranged from the LA Lakers to Chicago Cubs or Montreal Canadiens. No one said the Edmonton Oilers, but I like to believe Connor McDavid is working on it. But as these students compiled a list of popular sports teams, one student raised their hand and said the Edmonton Grads. So the fact that this local women's basketball team, who won 95% of their games, was arguably leading the conversation is impressive. And this foundation of support for Canadian women's basketball extends beyond the scope of the immediate sports community. It includes the local student who interrupted another class to yell, "Hey, I was at that game," when a photo from the 2019 FIBA Women's Olympic pre-qualifying tournament comes onto the screen. And some fun facts, the tournament was hosted in Edmonton and Canada won all 3 games. I also look at sport through the eyes of a longtime basketball fan. As a player at McMaster University in Ontario, before the senior women's team moved to Edmonton, I would watch the team train from outside the gym through this small little window in the door, and it was incredible to watch such an elite program operate. When I moved to Edmonton a few years after Canada basketball, you could say I was following the team, but I promise it was a coincidence. I became a local coach who was able to watch from the sidelines. And without the door between me and the practice, I was able to hear the communication among the team firsthand and was welcomed into the gym. Lisa Tomaitis, the head coach of our senior women's team, would come over and say hello and talk to me when she had an on-court break. One time, she even asked me who I liked on court, and it was kind of mind-blowing having the Olympic team head coach ask me who I was watching. So wow, I hope I gave her a good answer, but who knows what she thought. So over the years, I've even had young local players join me on the sidelines. One athlete came to Saville on her spare period to watch a senior women's practice. This high school athlete put her phone away, left her friends, and spent time in the gym, not only because Canada basketball was there, but because they deliberately extend opportunities to our community. Edmonton became not only a place for the team to practice, but a larger family that Canada basketball embraced. 2 years ago, as the U16 Alberta provincial team head coach, national team players Shayna, Ruth, and Cassandra made the trip to one of our practices. They answered questions, shared stories, and even ran the team through shooting drills to demonstrate their skills and offer feedback. They connected with the team as role models and mentors. An elite level program such as Canada Basketball not only inspires generations of community members, but it normalizes professional females. From the young athletes watching training camp through a window, to young coaches sitting on the sidelines, or a still young coach working as an apprentice with the U19 national program, this is not possible without accessibility and integration. There is no doubt that wherever Canada women set up their camp will be an asset to that city and province. Keeping Canada basketball here will build on our momentum, leading to meaningful impact in our community, as the job isn't done yet. So thank you for your time and attention, as well as the opportunity to speak on these positive impacts of the senior women's national team keeping their home in our city. Thank you.
And thank you. That was well timed. You must have a good internal clock. About 20 seconds? Yeah. All right. Well, thank you. And yeah. We'll now move on to Paul Sir. The floor is yours for the next 5 minutes.
Good morning, everyone. As everybody has been touching on the important impact of the Edmonton Grads, as you can see from my choice of attire today, that I'm taking it to the next level. I want to start by thanking the City of Edmonton for its support for the Canada Basketball Senior Women's National Team and the Alberta Basketball Association's Inter-City Initiative over the past 8 years. Now, as has been well spoken about today, the inspiration, for this partnership between these parties is rooted in the rich history, heritage, and unparalleled legacy of the Edmonton Grads. And the accomplishment of the Grads goes way beyond the 502 wins and 20 losses. It even transcends the world and Olympic championships that they won. It's embodied in the Grads accomplishing this when women were marginalized in so many facets of life, and opportunities in many areas, including sport, were almost non-existent. Under Coach J. Percy Page, this evolving group of young women set about their work to do something special, which was play basketball across the globe at a time when this was unheard of. And they didn't accomplish goals that girls everywhere dreamed of because the dreams didn't even exist. The grads literally created the dreams that the women on our present Olympic team have. These dreams were reborn and reignited when the national team made their home in Edmonton. The city of Edmonton made this possible by supporting the team as no other municipality ever has. The team's global rise to becoming one of the top teams in the world is so special because of made even more special because of their commitment to our community. The Alberta Basketball's commitment to our inner city initiative has kept the grads and national team vision going year-round through its work with numerous communities that are often overlooked and marginalized by helping girls and young women with economic and societal barriers have fun playing basketball. The national team has demonstrated their commitment to the spirit of the agreement with their efforts when they come to Edmonton to train. The most asked question that they always pose is, what more can we do? When the team is in town, there are school, hospital visits, camps and clinics, appearances at the Northside Hoops program, and on and on and on. When they're not in town, as Denise indicated, and they're playing in countries across the world, there are online seminars to empower athletes, coaches, and even business people. They have been there ready to go and to touch people's lives. Edmonton's national and international reputation is greatly enhanced by this partnership. As a city, we are known for our vision, but what we are known for even more is for our ability to take action. And this partnership has to be honored, carried forward, built up, and enhanced. As a demonstration of this commitment, Canada Basketball, the senior women's national team, ABA, and Kids Sport are putting the finishing touches on a legacy scholarship program honoring the Edmonton grads, and this scholarship is going to help pay for the participation fees of economically challenged girls and young women in Edmonton. Only partners with a commitment to our youth will put in the time and resources to make sure girls and young women can play. Bringing the senior women's national team to Edmonton has inspired Edmontonians of all ages, abilities, and cultures to lead more physically active lives. This helps bring about positive social and cultural change through improving mental and physical health and wellness. Isn't that the vision that's embodied in the Live Active strategy that we as a city so passionately support? They are a team that exemplifies, fosters, and promotes inclusion, equity, and opportunities as role models that embody these values. We have this special relationship now. We've built the foundation. Let's keep building the house. Money, time, collaboration, and sweat equity have all been put into get us to this point. Let's keep lifting up and inspiring our girls and young women through the sport most played by new Canadians. Let's continue to bring more sport, tourism, and great basketball events to our city. More needs to be done. It's ironic that the senior women's national team qualified for the 2016 Olympics by winning the FIBA Americas Championship at the Pac Saville Community Sports Center in 2015, exactly 100 years after the Trailblazers, the Edmonton grads, started on their journey that's created this legacy that lives on today. Let's continue building these dreams by staying as the home of the Canada Basketball Senior Women's National Team and continue the work started by the Edmonton grads. Thank you.
Thank you. What a wonderful slice of history. Wow. And you were perfectly on time. So thank you. We now have some questions from some councillors. I see that Councillor Cartmel is on the board. So go ahead, Councillor Cartmel.
Happy to defer to any committee members if anybody else has questions ahead.
I believe everyone is deferring to you.
Oh, very good. Thank you.
Pass it back. We can. But
Fair
go ahead.
Thank you, Councillor Paquette, and thank you to our speakers today for taking the time to join us from your homes across Canada. It's really heartwarming to see all of your presentations and to have you here today. And really, just a couple of questions, because you really together have really articulated the value of this agreement over the past, I think it's 8 years now. And I maybe Ms. Armand, I'd ask you a couple of questions. You spoke of that time in your youth when you're gazing through that window and I'm sort of imagining that, the longing wish to participate in what was happening inside the walls. What if you had not had that opportunity? What if there wasn't something on the other side of that window? It's a bit of an open question, but can you speculate on where your career or where your path might have taken you without, the inspiration that was taking place in a place that was accessible to you?
For sure. Thank you for the question. It's definitely hard to say where I would be without that kind of experience, but for me personally, I had a career-ending injury while I was a player at McMaster University. So without the opportunities when I came to Edmonton of being on the sidelines and really watching the program firsthand, I'm not sure I would be a coach at the level that I am now. So it kind of opened my eyes to different opportunities in sport beyond that Olympic dream of playing on the basketball court. So these other opportunities as a coach, as a manager, even as an official, which is not the route that I took, but definitely something that has been encouraged with some of the younger population involved in sport as well. So I think it just opens doors to routes that are not often talked about in sport.
Well, and maybe to you and maybe to Ms. Dignard as well, can you speak to being a young girl or an adolescent girl and having a female role model, having that person to aspire to, or that league or that position to or place to play? There's lots of professional leagues around for young boys to aspire to play in, but there is not as many. And can you speak to that a little bit? What the value of having that inspiration front of mind provides for young women?
Did you want Denise? Did you want to take that one, or did you want
Ms. Armand? And
You can start, and then I'll build.
Okay, excellent. Yeah, you make a great point that these professional leagues and sometimes more competitive opportunities aren't available to women like they are the male counterparts. And even specifically with the Edmonton Basketball Association recreational league that I play in, they have about 12 or 13 different levels for male basketball players, and then about 5, arguably 3 for the women's side. So seeing these kind of opportunities grow and having these women in coaching events or having these senior women athletes come out to these events is huge to keep people participating when it's harder to find opportunities. So it's helped to kind of see those mentors in that role as well.
To my earlier point, Councillor Cartmel, you can't be what you can't see. You'll hear our players say that now frequently. I mean, they've had a platform for those who were in the WNBA this summer to really step up and have their voices heard. And it wasn't just this summer. It's been forever that, in the WNBA that they've taken this on. And I think if you look at universities across the NCAA with Title IX, they started with, having female coaches, and we see the impact that it had there historically prior to, and there's some work certainly here in Canada that's being done in this space in terms of women in coaching apprenticeships, and we certainly espouse that important value of having female role models in the various positions. And when we there's only ever 12 players that make the senior national team at one given time. But any time we have broader camps, we tell them that they've now officially part of the Canada basketball family, and that it takes all kinds of contributors in this game, whether it's sports medicine. We have a physiotherapist that was inspired by one of our physio, and she was a junior and development team athlete. And so just that community of basketball and the female role models in any of the positions is critical. And just being in the classrooms with the athletes when they do connect with the young students, it's just amazing to see the transformation. one comment. They'll come and talk to them afterwards. We try to make it a really safe and interactive environment for them to ask questions, and then they'll come afterwards, and then we hear from the teachers and the coaches afterwards of, how it's transformed them. And it's invaluable, really.
Thank you. Mr. Chair, I see my time is up. I just had one or two questions for Mr. Sir, if I could.
Well, I don't see anyone else on the board, so I believe this will be the second round. Go ahead.
Thank you. I promise to be brief. Thank you, Ms. Armand and Ms. Dingard, for your responses there. I find them inspirational, quite frankly. Paul, you're the local guy here. We're seeing the effect of this inspiration in our local facilities, in the local demand to our programs. Is that fair to say? Go Center is full. We're starting to fill the Expo Center.
Absolutely, Councillor Cartmel. The national averages, as indicated in the reports, we far exceed them with girls participating in basketball. And I'll share one scene with everyone that I think is indicative of the reach, the impact that this has, of my being in a school gym watching girls, 6 girls in hijabs playing 3-on-3 against each other in a very safe environment, feeling excited and empowered by this opportunity to play the sport of basketball. And the impact that the women's national team, as Isabel was indicating, of having open practices and club teams bringing their teams in, sitting and watching, but then the power of the interaction after the practice, the way the girls embrace the community and try to inspire these young women. That's what makes Edmonton special. I mean, we have this rich history of the grads, and it's just embodied in the work that the national team performs. And it's had now that ripple effect of growth and, creating that sense of wanting to belong to this sport and taking the sense of self-worth, the mental health benefits, as well as the physical activity benefits.
So, Paul, a bit of a tougher question for you. We've heard from administration. I'll have a couple of questions for them in a minute. That this program is not funded beyond the end of the year, and the city and city council would have to make a choice to continue this sponsorship by finding some dollars to continue, even at its current rate. How could this program improve? What would you see that could be that would be additional impacts that this program would offer if it was permitted to continue?
Well, and I appreciate that. I really appreciate that question, Councillor Cartmel. Number one, the starting of the building to very meaningful levels of the scholarship program I mentioned in my remarks, to provide funds directly to girls and young women who do genuinely have economic challenges and can't participate. That's a starting point. An expansion and continued growth in the inner city initiatives that happen year round by the Alberta Basketball Association, reaching into communities that need access to free or very, very low cost programs to give their people the opportunity that just haven't existed before. Third, expansion and growth of the international events that Canada Basketball brought here. For instance, the Edmonton Grads Classic. The goal has been to expand that to more than 2 teams. And also what we want to do is add on to that a grassroots all-girls tournament that would be held at the same time, that would bring more girls and young women into the gym to see the national team play and be mentored by them. And then fourth would be a continued dialogue and collaboration to have the team, and these women are absolutely remarkable, but have these remarkable people out in our community in more and more places, impacting more and more lives. So that's how we can improve. And I think when you're building something, that's what you have to look at, is how can we improve this? How can we grow this? How can we make this better? And that, I know, is what everyone's committed to.
Thanks, Paul. And we would be remiss if we didn't acknowledge Councillor Anderson's work in getting this whole program started. So I just thought I'd share that thought with you.
If I could just add, Brian's work was incredible, as was Mayor Mandel at the time. That leadership And that belief in the grads and belief in young women and girls is you're absolutely right. That has to be acknowledged. Thank you.
Great. Thank you to all of our speakers for participating today. Really appreciate your input and the time you shared with us today. Thank you.
Well said. Very appropriate. Thank you. That concludes our questions. So again, I'll add my thanks to the speakers, and you are free to stick around and watch the rest of the debate here. We'll now move on to questions of administration. And I don't see anyone else on the board besides Councillor Cartmel. I believe, yep, we'll just go ahead to Councillor Cartmel. Go ahead.
Thank you, and I appreciate the patience of the committee. I'll try to be quick. And thank you, Mr. Jevney, for your comments earlier today. I'm wondering if you spoke to roughly $8 million in economic activity that we've seen over the life of this agreement. Would that include earned media? It's just a question I have. But we've heard mention that there's a lot of television exposure to these tournaments. That the Edmonton name is on the jerseys, that kind of a thing. Are we able to quantify that, or not?
I'm going to see if Ms. Bremer wants to respond to that first.
Sure. Yeah. So, Councillor Cartmel, that is strictly the economic impact from the tournaments that we hosted. So it does not include the earned media. But yeah, I think that there was some reference to the earned media that we got mostly around the FIBA Americas event in 2015. But the $8 million was strictly the economic impact from the assessment of the individual tournaments.
And we're hopeful that we're going to be able to host that America's Cup. I'm not quite sure how to say that, later this spring, right?
Yes, that's the hope in June, actually, that we would be the host of that, pandemic allowing. And we are continuing to work through what kind of protocols we might have to bring in if the pandemic will still be impacting our community, but what protocols we might have to bring in to safely host that tournament.
And I believe the report suggested that the economic impact of that tournament would be 2.8 million without spectators and 3.1 with. Is that do I have those numbers correct?
Yeah.
Okay. And so that would be additional economic impact off the existing agreement, not necessarily yeah.
Correct.
So I guess. So the report now is for information. I don't think that we're in a position either as committee or council today to make any funding recommendations given the economic and financial pressures we're under. But the suggestion is that when we get towards the end of this calendar year, we might be able to consider extending this agreement, but that would require a motion from council. Am I correct on that, Mr. Jevney or Mr. Smythe?
I think, Councillor, we would want to line it up with our supplementary operating budget review that happens in October, November, December timeframe. So it could, we could bring back a unfunded service package, if you will, during that time in response to a motion that gets made today, or we could bring it back a follow-up report maybe after the summer. To provide additional information if there is additional information in terms of basically an update to what's been presented today.
Right.
Either of those options would work on our end, I think.
Thank you. So that's good to know. And final question. I'll ask you the same question, either you, Mr. Smythe, or Ms. Brenner, or Roger. The question I asked of Mr. Sir, should this agreement go forward, what are some of the improvements or changes or adjustments that you would see that would provide more benefit to the city as part of their contribution to the agreement?
Well, I think Mr. Stir outlined it very well. The additional hosting of additional events would be very positive. The exposure those bring, trying to get more. The team does a tremendous number of site visits, school visits, camps, and clinics. And those do have a big impact. So if we could find a way to do more of those, or to really amplify the message when they're here, the more people are aware that the team is here, and take advantage of those opportunities, and continue to build on the good work of Alberta basketball with those intercity programs, and just getting more kids playing, and having the team finding ways to really build on the fact that they're here, and that they are great role models, and try and grow the grassroots part of the sport as well.
Thank you. Just seeing if anybody else had a comment to make. thank you very much to everyone for your discussion here today, for your comments and your offerings. And I believe that Councillor Zadok might be able to make a motion on my behalf. So thanks again, everyone.
All right, thank you, Councillor Cartmel. Yeah, and we've got Councillor Zadok up next. Go ahead.
Thank you. I really appreciated hearing from the speakers and good answers from administration to Councillor Cartmel's questions, which means I'm in a position where I don't have any further questions, but recognizing the good work that Councillor Cartmel has put into this, and him not being on the committee makes it that he doesn't have standing to make a motion right now, but when it comes to council, there will be that opportunity to further endorse this, but I'd be pleased at the moment to put forward a motion for the committee's consideration. So that would read that administration, one, prepare an unfunded operating budget adjustment for the fall 2021 SOBA to reflect extension of the Canada Basketball Sponsorship Agreement to December 2024. And two, in consultation with Basketball Canada and Basketball Alberta, determine revisions to the sponsorship that better reflect the desired outcomes of all agreement partners. And I suppose that could be due in Q4 of this year, 2021. That's all.
Okay, very good. Did you want to introduce that, or you're good?
Yeah, I kind of did a reverse introduction. I'm good. Thank you.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so I think that is the motion on the floor. Any debate about that motion?
Mr.
No?
Chair, it's the clerk. If I just may ask a confirmation of Councillor Zadok.
Go ahead.
For part 2 of the motion, is the intent for a report back on the sponsorship agreement, or for the actual agreement to come back pending approval of the budget?
Since the floor is mine, I'm going to answer, but then I'll seek clarification from Councillor Cartmel. But I think it'd be helpful if it came before SOBA, and in the format that it comes, I think a memo would probably be sufficient. But I don't know procedurally how I get confirmation from Councillor Cartmel through the chair. I guess I'll say a memo would be satisfactory to me, and I seek to be corrected by anyone on this call if they want something else I could yield and adjust my stated preference.
Okay, that sounds good. We'll move to Councillor Cartmel.
Thank you. I think Councillor Zadok makes a great suggestion. If there was a memo that came forward to council ahead of SOBA that outlines, perhaps a draft agreement or a summary of how the agreement is being revised or enhanced, I think that would be adequate. And then an unfunded budgeting item that came to SOBA based on that memo. Does that make sense, Madam Clerk? I'm not sure that that's procedurally correct, but that practically acceptable.
Yeah, I believe that committee could direct that administration provide a memo prior to the fall 2021 SOBA, and then I would maybe suggest reordering the motion so that that's part 1, and then part 2 would be that administration prepare an unfunded service package that would come to fall 2021 SOBA.
The suggestion from the clerk is friendly to me.
Okay, anyone opposed to making that adjustment? Not hearing any? Yeah, I think that's a good idea. Let's go ahead and do that. I guess we'll get the wording up on the screen. And while we're waiting, I'll just mention that I'd like to thank Councillor Cartmel for his efforts on this. I'd like to thank the community members for coming out and speaking on this, and administration for putting all of this together. And of course, as has been mentioned, good work of Councillor Anderson for really building up this this ethic of sport in our city that helps in so many ways, from reducing social disorder to increasing physical and mental health and creating a sense of community. And do we happen to have that the wording up on the board yet? Yeah, okay. So any debate on this? No? Anyone to close? Are we good to go? All right. If you can please vote on the motion. Actually, before we do, does the new wording have to be read out?
I believe the original reading out was sufficient, as we just changed the order.
Perfect. Okay, so please vote.
And we're just missing your vote, Councillor Paquette.
It's a spinning circle. I am a resounding yes.
Thank you. That's all the votes.
That's kind of appropriate. Okay, and that is carried. Thank you, and thank you everyone today. All right, and that is it. We will now move on to item 6.4, Orange Hub. And I believe we have a verbal report.
We do, Mr. Chair. We have 5 or 6 slides to run through. Will this load the presentation? Give us a moment.
Okay, absolutely.
Okay, I think we're set to go. I think everybody can see the slide deck here. Just introduce our team this morning. We have Mr. Jevney on this item as well as the previous item. We also have Judy Rahovy, our director in the Community Recreation Facilities Branch. The Orange Hub is part of Ms. Rahovy's portfolio. Just briefly, then I'll pass it over to Roger. At the December public hearing on the 2021 budget, Council was made aware of the financial challenges facing a number of tenants in the Orange Hub due to COVID-19. Then subsequently, on December 11th, City Council directed us, the administration, to engage the tenants to determine their immediate financial needs and to bring this verbal report to you today. Since then, we've been in contact with the tenants at the Orange Hub and we'll share our preliminary findings with committee. Pass the presentation over now to, I believe it's Mr. Jevney. Roger.
Good. Thanks, Rob. So as you recall, the city purchased the old McEwen campus on 156th Street in 2017 with the vision to create a multi-agency, vibrant community hub with a focus on arts, recreation, wellness, and learning. In the 3 years since, 20 community organizations call the Orange Hub home, including 18 not-for-profit and 2 commercial tenants. Over the past couple of years, several reports regarding the Orange Hub have informed Council of our progress to achieve that vision. There's no doubt that COVID-19 is having a significant and potentially long-lasting impact on our community. Even more, the recovery may take several years. Several tenants at the Orange Hub have shared their immediate operational and financial impacts as a result of the pandemic and the associated public health measures that are expected to continue through 2021. In fact, as we'll outline today, several tenants fear that without financial support, they cannot afford to stay at the Orange Hub. Should this occur, not only are the tenants impacted, but the future of the Orange Hub and its ability to attract new tenants may be in jeopardy. Today, we'll speak to the establishment of a funding relief program that would provide direct financial support to a number of tenants, which in turn will help protect the substantial investment already made in the Orange Hub. Some administrations had discussions with all tenants at the Orange Hub to ascertain at a high level what their individual needs are. In addition, a tenant advocacy group has provided direct impact and feedback on the work completed by administration. A couple of the tenants who we've worked with side by side over the past few weeks are here today and will be speaking shortly. Through preliminary discussions, there appears to be 3 levels of support needed for 2021 for tenants to help them remain at the Orange Hub. 4 tenants are an immediate financial need. We understand that if some level of direct support is not provided to these tenants within the first 60 days of 2021, they're at a great risk of incurring debt to the city and may have no choice but to terminate their leases relatively soon. The range of the financial need is about 40 to 60% relief of their lease payments for up to 12 months. There's 6 other tenants at risk with less immediate needs, but anticipate requiring financial support in the short term, likely the next 4 to 6 months. The financial support is expected to range between 10 and 55% relief of their lease payment. The potential financial impact of these 10 tenants is estimated between $140,000 and $180,000 in 2021. And finally, there are 10 tenants who have not been impacted as significantly by COVID-19 or have in some way adopted the programs and stewardship. At this time, these groups indicate they may not require any or only minimal financial support in 2021. The range of direct and indirect financial support for these groups is not yet known. The opportunity for community groups to generate revenue and raise funds has been directly and indirectly eliminated by the COVID restrictions. Program registrations, membership fees, casinos, bingos, reduction or temporary elimination of long-standing grant programs, just to name a few. To help offset these revenue reductions, tenants indicate that a temporary reduction in their payments to the City of Edmonton would have the greatest impact on their ability to survive 2021. The tenants have expressed a sincere desire to remain in the Orange Hub as it has become their home, and it's in our best interest to have them stay. So today, tenants have provided their own assessment on their level of need, and no financial documentation has been reviewed by the City. The tenants are seeking a 2021 relief program, and if Council directs us to develop such a program, a level of due diligence and transparency on the program will be established. It's understood this would be a one-time funding opportunity made available in 2021 only. And it's planned to be flexible and able to adapt throughout the year to reflect the economic and social conditions as they develop. The specific mechanism to provide financial support could be modeled after the interim COVID abatement program established in 2020 by the real estate branch for commercial tenants, and will be fully vetted by our legal, finance, and business partners to ensure it meets all relevant obligations and restrictions. Some alternatives to rent relief may include reducing the lease space, providing support through one-time operational sustainability grant program, or allowing access to other facility spaces at no cost that will allow programming and services to continue within the current health restrictions. However, to be clear, any relief program must be on side with the Municipal Government Act and may require a period of public notice and advertising, as well as receive explicit approval of City Council. The ongoing engagement of tenants will include the confidential assessment of need supported by financial documents. And considerations will have to be given to the varied needs of tenants to be flexible and tailored to each unique situation. All the while, Alberta health restrictions will continue to evolve and the federal and provincial funding supports will emerge and fade. If no funding relief program is established for 2021, there's a risk that City Council's vision for the Orange Hub will take a step back. Tenants may start to leave the hub, and the risk of not being able to secure new tenants in the current economic climate is high. There will be lost revenue for the facility in 2021 in the range of $140,000 to $180,000. This program, if approved, may generate new expectations for financial support by other city tenants outside the Orange Hub who also find themselves in similar circumstances. By supporting the tenants of the Orange Hub, we continue to move forward, realizing Council's vision of a community hub supporting art, education, recreation, and wellness. A full and vibrant facility helps retain tenants and can contribute to a positive reputation as a true community hub. So although we have a high-level understanding of tenants' needs, more in-depth discussion and verification is needed with those affected tenants and our internal stakeholders. First, we will immediately implement lease payment deferrals for tenants who request it. This will provide interim relief while a thorough financial assessment of the needs are completed. Next, we'll continue to engage closely with all the tenants and ensure information is shared on any new relief programs. The third, time will be spent to complete a detailed financial assessment of the tenants that have identified their immediate or short-term need of financial support. As we said, current findings indicate 10 tenants will be reviewed during this period. The past summer, real estate established an interim COVID abatement program for eligible commercial tenants. So to ensure the same level of due diligence and rigor for this unique program, a similar methodology will be applied and updated as needed. Engagements with tenants will continue as information on the relief program is shared and as they generate the required documentation to support the request for relief funding. Once tenants have submitted their written request in conjunction with the Community Rec Facilities Branch and Real Estate Branch, our partners in financial services will validate the financial position of each organization. In parallel, a number of actions are underway that may assist tenants. A review of the current leases will be undertaken to determine if the language or terminology in the lease has inadvertently excluded tenants from being eligible for federal provincial relief programs, subsidies, or grants. Additionally, as per our lease agreements, a review of annual operating costs is being conducted as it relates to the current per square foot cost and the impacts of the lease rate. It's expected the next steps can be completed by early March, and we can return with a verbal update and recommendations in 8 weeks, with the relief program to be implemented immediately thereafter. We do understand the situation is very serious for some tenants, and we appreciate their desire to understand what support may be available as soon as possible. So thank you. We'll be happy to take any questions following the presentations by the two speakers.
Okay, thank you very much. And we do indeed have two speakers, and we will begin with Todd Janes. And I believe you know the drill, sir.
I do indeed, Councillor Paquette, or Mr. Chair, I should say today. What a lovely background. I'm just wondering if it might be best for Ms. Bedford to go because she is speaking directly from the tenant perspective.
That works out very well. We can do that, absolutely. So let's revert that order then. And
thank you.
Kara, please go ahead.
Yes, thank you so much, Council. And in my previous 5-minute window with you, I shared how the tenants of the Orange Hub were aligning the vision of the space, despite, these horrible circumstances that we face with COVID-19, especially being nonprofits in this world. The word I used was symbiotic, a word that still rings true today. And I highlighted the 3 committees that outline the needs for the tenant members: advocacy, fundraising, and operations. We looked at the diverse needs that all our groups find themselves in, and we hope it's not lost that these organizations span different cultures, operating over decades in the community, and do support some of our most vulnerable. Today, I'm here as a representative of the tenants of the Orange Hub, as well as the marketing coordinator for Gateway Chorus. Gateway Chorus is a nonprofit that has humbly served this community for over 60 years. Today, I'm really asking for action because time is running out. Gateway is a chorus of women who share a common bond. We sing and bring joy to Edmontonians with laughter, friendship, and love. And we have created a safe space on our risers for many women, single mothers, or any of those who identify as female and that would like to join us. We are LGBTQ2S++ friendly, and we usually sing at festivals all over the city or bring joy to your grandparents' nursing home. Our quartets sing at Luminaria, do Valentine lovegrams, and usually during Christmas, you can find us on the streets singing to those less fortunate. We represent Edmonton on the international stage and all over the world in contests, receiving acclaimed awards. And on Tuesday nights, you can hear us ringing those chords in harmony throughout the hub. And we find people just sitting outside of our door listening. Whenever we can bring song, we will, but unfortunately, COVID has not permitted us. We actually are a banned activity. We cannot perform. And therefore, our revenue sources dry up. Attracting new members is so very hard. And can you imagine you guys singing on a Zoom? I'm sure you can all attest how hard it is to get 60 people just to respect the good old mute button today. We are more than just a singing organization. We are sisters and stewards of Edmonton, and we spread joy to our community. The Orange Hub's vision was to create a space where social agencies, business groups, educational institutions, and arts-related organizations will work side by side. Organizations just won't be able to make it through another year of what we have faced. So how do we protect this investment the city has made? We do this by keeping the tenants, as a reduced rent is better than no rent at all. The domino effect that could occur as tenants start to leave is something I don't even want to think of. The 40,000 ask or 40 to 60% ask from admin now supports those who took a chance to make the Orange Hub home, and it supports those now. In closing, I want to share a story. As we've all been working really hard to support the needs for each of our respective nonprofits in our communities, more so than ever before within the walls of the Orange Hub. I myself have volunteered over 150 hours just to get to this point today. As I said, I use the term symbiotic, and here is a real-life example of this word in action. Gateway is one of the identified organizations that would be leaving this year if we are not able to receive help. Right before Christmas, we had a tenant committee meeting. Many shared stories of the current situations that we find ourselves in. It was honest and it was open. And hearing our story, another tenant donated 2 months of rent to us. This highlights that each organization is facing their own unique challenges. Some will need significant help and others very little. The ebbs and flows of COVID-19 are something that we are trying so hard to navigate. The Orange Hub is a unique experiment conceived as an incubator space where groups from individual artists through grassroots community organizations all the way to Yellowhead Tribal College have developed community together. It has taken 3 years to fill this building with viable groups. It is crucial we do not lose that synergy. It is a unique situation that needs this one-time ask. Please help keep it alive. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And we will now move to Todd James.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and Kara for that. In the December public hearing regarding the 2021 budget, we came and shared with Council the financial challenges facing the tenants of the Orange Hub due to COVID. At that time, as Mr. Smythe mentioned, Council directed administration to go back to do some exploration, to do what needed to be done to keep the tenants healthy and in this hub if they desired. And since then, we've worked with administration and the branch to work through these numbers of scenarios. Today, I speak to you in my role as Executive Director of the Stony Plain Road Business Association and a member of the Tenants Association, and one of the people who has volunteered to help build this city council investment and to keep every tenant in the Orange Hub active if they choose to. My organization is privileged in that we are not asking for any consideration in our lease. I'm here to speak on behalf of others and ask you to support this vision during these times for one-time limited support. The Stony Plain Road Business Association has over 500 members, and throughout COVID, we've done work with them, and early in the game, we said, please ask 3 questions or do 3 things. Talk to your bank, talk to your insurance company, and talk to your landlord. Many Edmontonians and many businesses have done this, and as a tenants association, we're doing the same thing. We're using as good due diligence and business practice as possible to reach out to our landlord, the City of Edmonton, to say we are having trouble paying our leases because of the restrictions due to COVID and Alberta Health to meet the needs of our clients, our tenants, and those who engage with us. Currently, the Orange Hub tenants are 20 groups involving artists, arts organizations, social service organizations, a community daycare, and community focus organizations, with a couple of commercial tenants. We'd like more. COVID-19 is having a significant negative impact on our community and globally. Several tenants in the Orange Hub that have been indicated are in immediate operational and financial need. And without a change to their lease and payments, we believe they will leave. We have been working with administration of the Orange Hub to understand priorities and where the city can protect the current investment in the Orange Hub, an investment driven by City Council, and to build capacity during a global pandemic. Without immediate action, at least 4 of these organizations will no doubtedly give their 60-day notice of lease agreements and they will leave. I believe that if they leave, they will not return, and others will be very hard to attract. Reputation is very important and can be damaged quickly. These organizations took a leap of faith with the City of Edmonton when they signed leases to become part of the Orange Hub and to build a community hub collectively. This pandemic has seriously disabled organizations from raising funds and also serving residents of Edmonton and the surrounding area and clients who benefit from this ecosystem. We need your support, and I would encourage you to act quickly and support the recommendation of an immediate $40,000 to support the needs of the most vulnerable tenants. This isn't, in press terms, an ask for new money. It is probably at best case scenario an internal City of Edmonton accounting transfer. However, this will mean significant amounts to the tenants and also work towards building the vision that City Council set. Thank you.
And thank you. Okay, so we have some questions for our speakers, starting with Councillor Zadek. Go ahead.
Thank you. Thanks for the presentation. And yeah, the need is noted. Similar needs are needed across the city. Challenges with all types of leases all around, to repeat the same point. what's with the Orange Hub in the sense that if people leave, if tenants leave, they wouldn't come back? Like, what are we doing wrong that we're having trouble attracting people there?
I think that's a question for administration and for your leasing and your leasing branch. Quite honestly, through no fault of the Orange Hub or the City of Edmonton, Alberta Healthcare has limited restrictions to buildings. So a number of the people who moved to the Orange Hub didn't just move for inexpensive rent. They moved because it was a facility that could accommodate a large number of people for a multitude of services in the West End, where the need is great, but they serve people throughout all of the city. I think over the next few years, how we look at leasing rates and how people lease areas will change dramatically. I think the impact currently would be on reputation. These nonprofit organizations took a leap. They engaged in a contract with the city and said, we want to build something great together. And if any of you were to look at the leases, and many of you have business backgrounds, I don't think anyone would sign that lease. It's very cumbersome. There are a lot of restrictions around it. It's operated in the best way possible, but it's certainly operated very much like our rec facilities, most of which are completely closed down. It is a City of Edmonton building, and I feel the administration is doing the best job they can under the situation. However, the way the leases are written, which Mr. Jepney referred to, some of our tenants have applied for federal rent support or leasing support and have been denied because of how the current leases are structured and how then our tenants have not been able to articulate rent versus lease versus operating on those areas. And that is an issue that we're looking at. The Orange Hub is a new venture for the City of Edmonton, and we're learning together. We're walking together in this. I think we've done great things, but we need your support.
Yeah, and I understand that. So thanks. I think it's fascinating, some of the points you brought up, and I will ask our administration those. For me, I've been to several events there, and at first blush, it's an attractive building from the outside. It's unique. Inside, the space seems functional. It's good transit, and it's a part of the city that seems to have a localized need, but also it's a bit of a destination. It's in itself. So I will ask those questions. Thanks for that clarity, because that's the first time I've sort of heard that this issue kind of open up to the extent that was just articulated by yourself. I guess I would ask, I'm not trying to be provocative here, but is the city, in your opinion, the best landlord for this building? I think we all have the desire to help out the community groups that are in there, and recognizing that all the tenants are great assets to the City of Edmonton and the localized area in the West End. But do you think the city is in the best position to be the landlord?
I don't know if I can comment on if they're in the best position. The fact is, the City of Edmonton is the landlord, and we're in a situation, and the City of Edmonton probably needs to do what many other landlords are doing throughout the city, and giving their tenants support during this time.
Okay, thank you for answering my questions there. No more questions.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Zadig. We have Councillor Knack up next.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. One quick question. I think I heard it through both speaking notes. Thank you both for coming. But just to clarify, Ms. Bedford, what you heard today from our administration is what we need to do for the solution. Like that is an adequate solution that will help get where we need to go. What they presented today, correct?
Yeah, correct. And we've been working hand in hand with them, answering as many questions. We even opened up, what grants have we applied for and what we got denied with, which is what Todd spoke to as one of the issues in the wording of our documentation. because it does not make it easy for us to be approved federally. There are many ways we can work together, but that first initial ask will get those 4 tenants over the hump. And that is really what we need to do today.
Yep, and that's all I wanted to double check. So we are good to go. Those are all my questions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. We also have Councillor Henderson who has some questions.
Well, just to follow up a little bit, and maybe these are questions that are better asked of administration, but just in case, I guess probably to you, Mr. James, to speak to the intent of the Orange Hub. I mean, it came out of a recommendation, the Mayor's Task Force on the Arts. We didn't buy it but as a moneymaker. I don't think we anticipated that. It was very intentionally to have other purposes. Obviously, we need to make revenue back on it. But can you speak a little bit about how that's working? Because the intent was to create a hub of arts organizations of all different kinds, amateur, professional, etc. Bring them all together in an incubation space, tie them in with social service groups and other nonprofits, other for-profit pieces that could help the neighborhood. It really, I think, it was an exercise as much in community building, large and small within the city, as it was a real estate play. I think as a real estate play, we never would have gone into it. So, but can you talk a little bit about how that's working out in good times? You know, because we were really just getting it going.
And I think part of it is maybe if we were to look at, financial statements from 2019, in 2020 and things like that. There are great capacities. The former John L. Haar Theater, the City of Edmonton is looking for naming rights if any corporations are wanting to sponsor that. Has great potential. It also has really great intersection of transit and other things. I mean, Councillor Henderson, you'll remember before you were a councillor, and the city was a landlord to many different things, and Fringe Theatre Adventures squatted in the old arts barns or the garage. We're not saying we're going to squat in a city-owned building for a while. However, when the city takes on things, they do it well. And I think we should, as citizens of Edmonton, be very proud of that. Maybe they're not the best property managers, but they do it in a safe, healthy, responsible way. And I think you need to applaud the city for that work. I think there's possibilities of greater synergy. Perhaps it could be opened a bit more in terms of who those commercial tenants are. I think perhaps a discussion with leasing or real estate might be good, but that's not what we're here to talk about. We're here to talk about doing things to support the organizations that are there currently.
No, I just wanted to just go back a little bit over that question about whether somebody else should be the landlord. And I just, so remembering the history of this, that we didn't buy it because we wanted to be a landlord. We built it because we bought it because we thought that there were benefits we could gain by taking a building that had been built for the arts, quite frankly, and had a lot of facility in there, and seeing if there was larger benefit for the larger nonprofit community in the city. And I just wanted, I obviously we could never have anticipated what's happened this year, but if this year hadn't happened, it was well on track to doing that, correct? And probably, hopefully, will be again.
Exactly. I think if we look at the synergy between FAVA and the Edmonton Screen Institutes and other things, there's a lot of video and new media game production happening there. There are lots of things going with theater rentals. There is great capacity. I think we shouldn't lose sight of that. And I think if you look at the longer plan for the Orange Hub, certainly I think part of it might be a transition at some point between the city stepping back further and having a coalition or other groups manage that site. I think you're right about that. And
that's one of the models we looked at, using RTAB or something else to operate it rather than us. But it's not. The work that we were trying to do there has much greater goals than breaking even on the building.
And it's a
Can I
return
just
on
point out
that.
that we're all vetted. We're all vetted
Yeah.
nonprofits that have long histories that went through the 18-month rigorous process to become part of this experiment with you.
Yeah.
And so in normal times, we are viable and vibrant together.
And achieving exactly what we wanted to achieve when we spent the money to buy the building. I just thought it was worth exploring that with you guys. Great, thank you very much. I'm out of time.
All right, thank you very much, Councillor Henderson. And I don't see any other folks on the board to ask questions to the speakers, so I will thank you very much for your submissions. Well said and well heard. And we will now move on to questions of administration. Oh, we've got Councillor Knack. Are you okay for administration?
Questions for admin.
Okay, just very eager for the next steps. Go ahead.
Thank you. Yeah, and I don't mean to rush it, but frankly, it seems like we've got a solution here before us that the tenants agree with, and so all I need to double check is from the administration side. The way I read the next steps motion, you're doing that. Do you need a committee motion, or it sounds like you're just doing it? If you need council approval at some point, you're going to come back to us. Is that correct?
Councillor, we would come back very early in March with a walk-on report like this one, with the actual funding confirmed that council would then, based on this conversation, potentially approve then. But it's the issue then.
So receiving for information advances that step.
It does, yes. We'll pursue this hard. Perfect. And there'll be still some that work we've outlined in that last slide, and we'll come back, as you say.
And we have potential funding sources like the one-time COVID relief. This might apply if we needed things like that. That might be the fund we're looking for in March.
That's correct, Councillor. I mean, we would come back with some funding sources or some funding options for council to look at and to make a decision.
Two more quick questions, just since it came up. If I recall correctly, in 2019, we were close. I think it was 87% cost. I feel like I remember seeing that number, 87% cost recovery, and that's not even being full. Is that correct?
I believe, Councillor, currently we're at 75 now, but Mr. Jevney or Mr.
75% occupancy, but I think 2019 we saw 87% cost recovery, if I remember my numbers right.
Roger, Judy?
Yes, that's correct. That was 87% cost recovery. That doesn't include our FMS costs, but certainly our annual operating costs. It was a 87% cost recovery. And Rob's correct. We have occupancy-wise, we're about 75% of the building is occupied.
Yeah, so when we do get to a full occupied scenario, we're probably actually more than break even on that. So I just thought I'd say that out loud because that's actually quite rare for a lot of city buildings. That's actually the anomaly and a good example of how it can work. Then the final question, which I had, and I'm just delaying because it went blank in my mind, is related to something important. I think I will, instead of just awkwardly drag this out as I forget what I was going to ask. So I'll stop for now.
Okay, we'll move on to Councillor Zadek. Go ahead.
Thank you. I just want to say right off the bat, I'm very supportive of the information provided today and the direction that administration is going into. I don't think it's uncommon for landlords to be providing additional effort and relief to tenants across the country and across the world right now. So that's right off the bat. I just wanted to get that out of the way. But in order to prepare for this meeting, my first question is, I'm just wondering why this was a verbal report. It seems like this information has been available for quite some time. It might have been nice to see some of this in writing prior, which is our standard with our agenda. So just why is this verbal?
Councillor, we've been working with the groups in the facility up until just a few days ago, just fine-tuning the information that we've provided today, and to making sure that we're giving all the correct information. So we weren't able to actually craft a council report through the city manager's office and through clerk's office to get timely information in front of committee.
Okay, so we heard today that the leases are actually characterized by some as complicated and perhaps, to paraphrase, sort of burdensome and unneedlessly, sorry, I can't speak today. What And to the extent that some other grants from other levels of government have not been realized because of some of the terms and conditions and phrases in our leases, can I get a response to that? Is this a standard lease, or are they? Why did we hear that? What's the situation there?
We do have a representative from real estate on the call, I believe. Chris, are you able to weigh in on that question?
I can. Thanks, Rob, and thanks, Councillor Zadick. I think the reference from the speaker was with relation to qualification for the criteria for the federal program. As the leasing situation within the Orange Hub is somewhat unique in that the tenants don't actually pay rent. The nonprofit tenants don't pay rent; they pay operating costs. It has impacted, in some cases, the eligibility for some of those programs. I know that different levels of government, and it happened earlier in 2020 as well, have been regularly reviewing the programs that exist and really looking at organizations that maybe have fallen through the cracks. And so I think that work is ongoing, and I think that's part of the nature of the conversation today is that there are a few groups that have had challenges with the eligibility for that federal program, and they're obviously coming to voice their concerns with being able to continue to be viable in the Orange Hub.
Have we worked on any quick fixes for that? Because I mean, with all our money, individual money, provincial money that goes to the federal government, it's nice when it's redistributed it back in a time of need through universal programs. But these seem like worthy tenants that are missing out based on the way we've presented them with the lease.
I think as Mr. Jevney referenced, there are a couple of different strategies that we're looking at, and that's part of the work that we'll return when we come back to council.
Okay, and so COVID has shed light on many things and the way we do business and the way we treat our not-for-profits and volunteer sector and all that. So we got a good historical background from Councillor Henderson, and I appreciated that because I didn't know all the history about how we came to acquire the Orange Hub. And from my experience, as I stated earlier, I think it's a great institution that really punches above its weight. But I want to see it fully utilized and with a higher capacity. So to that, no one's questioning about the location, or so it's there, its mandates there, but are we still, the city of Edmonton, in the best position to advance this to the next step? Like, I think it's very honorable what we've done up to this point to get it established, but for it to then get its own legs, is there an opportunity perhaps? And I'm just sort of, you know, again, I'm not trying to be provocative, and I don't think this discussion has previously happened, but just, are we still in the best position to advance them to the next level?
Councillor, all I can weigh in on that question is, I mean, is the work we're doing around Reimagine. Certainly there's lots of discussions, and as there was during budget time, about partner-operated facilities and contracting out and a whole range of, can we use civil society in a different kind of way to be more efficient, to be more cost-effective, and to deliver the same outcomes local government has. So nothing specific about the Orange Hub, but just in terms of recreation facilities and these kinds of venues that the city owns, is there a different way to operate them? So it's certainly a question that's being explored. It won't be immediate coming to council. I believe sort of second or third quarter that information will be in front of council. And certainly the advisory group of tenants that work with administration. I mean, this is just in its early stages of getting its own legs. It's come a long way from when the first tenants moved in. I mean, it certainly did take time, but it is, you know, strongly moving towards this vision. So that question is out there. Certainly no concrete answers at this point.
Thank you.
Yeah, Councillor, I would just add, it's Roger Jevney here. The initial vision, as Councillor Henderson had described it, did see a tenant organization at some point taking over operations of the building. So we're not in any way opposed to continue down that path, but we think at this point in time, we're in a better position to help manage the building as the tenants get settled and the vision comes to life. But to continue down that path at some point is certainly not something we would work with the tenants towards.
Okay, thank you for that. We've got Councillor Henderson on the board.
Well, just to explore the lease issue for a minute, I mean, all of our leases, and it's not just an Orange Hub, are based in city policy around how we do leases with nonprofit organizations, and I think that's a good policy, right? It was not written anticipating this situation with the federal government, but that doesn't mean it had other purposes, correct? Probably best to Mr. Hodgson, yeah.
Yeah, I'd say in general that that the concept of our nonprofit leasing guidelines is it's something that's applied across a number of different properties. Again, there's a little bit of a unique situation with some of the tenants within the Orange Hub in terms of how operating costs are calculated. But yeah, ultimately our leasing form is similar for other nonprofits.
But in order to be able to hold by that policy, which I think had good intent, we have just accidentally ended up in this situation this year. I mean, it's not that there's essentially anything wrong with the policy, but it's created this anomaly in this circumstance that couldn't have been anticipated. That's what sounds to me like has happened. Is that a good description?
Yeah, Councillor Henderson, I think you've articulated it well. We're in extraordinary circumstances, certainly circumstances that we weren't able to predict.
Yeah.
And a lot of the different programs that are being rolled out at the different levels of government, there are unique, specific items that I think that where groups are trying to find their way within those programs. And yeah, certainly the form of what we have for leases is what you would see typically. There aren't any unusual complications that we intentionally have within any of our leases.
Yeah. I just wanted to explore one other thing with you, and I don't think it's a huge. I think it might be a tiny elephant in the room. But I haven't heard. I mean, Orange Hub were the first people to come to us and sort of say we're having this issue, and can you and that you guys were trying to work on it, but you needed some help from us in order to facilitate that. I'm guessing there may be some other groups out there that may be in a similar situation. I haven't heard from them, but I'm assuming we would deal with them in the same way, dealing to the specific circumstance. If that happened and there were some other groups, we would have to look at them each as individual circumstances, and that's essentially the system you're setting up here, is to go in and have a look at each group on its own merit and respond. So this also builds us some policy ability for how to respond if we do get other kind of crises like this. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, Councillor Henderson. Yeah, I don't think that we see this as precedent setting. I think you're on the mark in terms of there being specific items, and again, every property is unique, every tenant is unique to some extent, and so we've been working collaboratively with our tenants and really monitoring things like rental arrears to ensure that we adapt and we're meeting their needs and requirements as we move ahead. So yeah, that's something that's ongoing.
Yeah, I guess what I'm asking is, rather than seeing it as a danger that we may be opening the doors to other groups, I would hope that if there are other circumstances where it may be in our best interest to help out, that we could go through this same process for them. But so far, nobody's come forward. Is that fair to say?
I'll be careful in how I answer this.
Yeah, I'm asking. I don't want to open floodgates here, but because I think one of the things I really respect about the Orange Hub is the collective response of the tenants not to take advantage of the ones that are in good shape, not to take advantage of this. I think is really quite noble. And I don't want to open floodgates, but if there are others that I think are in similar dire circumstances, I would hope we would look at them in the same kind of light. That's really just the question I'm asking.
Councillor Anderson, we are working collaboratively with our tenants. We don't view this as being precedent setting.
Yeah.
We as issues are brought forward for our consideration, we certainly look to problem solve through that and through the relationships with those tenants. And so that, at a high level, We see the benefit in the relationships that we have established already with those
Each
groups.
needs to be looked at on its own merits. It's important to continue to do this in an ad hoc way, but we have some template now for how to respond to the ad hoc situations. Is that a good description? If this is dangerous for you to answer, you don't need to. I just thought I should flag it. That's all. That's fine. I think you've answered my question. Thanks. I'm out of time anyway.
I think that's a sentiment shared by many today. All right, so Councillor Knack, you remembered your question.
Yeah, well, I don't need to ask anymore. I'll just move the receipt of information. We've talked about it all we need to, I think.
Okay, and I've got a quick question for admin. So it seems to me that there's a couple of issues here. One is on the admin side that due diligence, and that takes a bit of time. But then there's also the issue of tenants needing some sort of relief right now, not 6 weeks or 12 weeks from now. So I'm just wondering, do we have anything, or can we work with the tenants in any way to provide some form of immediate relief? Because what I'm hearing is there's a risk that this work that's gone in over the past little while to start building this Orange Hub up was going really well. Pandemic hit. The last thing we want to do is see this collapse and then start from near base again. If there's some way that we can save that future time and money with a little bit of effort now, do we have that capacity?
Councillor, our plan is that we would implement immediately lease payment deferrals until we bring that report back in March. So
yeah. Okay. But beyond that, above and beyond, we don't have any other programs available, do we?
There's no particular funding source or resources we have in the admin to tide them over, so to speak.
Okay.
It would only just be that deferral.
All right. And one of the holdups for the tenants to get federal relief is, in essence, the wording of their lease. Is that right?
Chris?
Councillor Paquette, I can't speak to individual circumstances. There is a federal program that does provide rent relief. I think that there are certainly situations where some groups have been really successful in qualifying for those programs. In fact, we're seeing a pretty stable historic trend to what we're seeing from an arrears standpoint and from a tenant default standpoint. And so I would say, on the whole, the majority of our tenants are well served. Now, certainly with some of the speakers that have registered today, there have been some unique circumstances where that the program criteria may not fit within the ways that our leases are structured. And part of that is, again, due to the fact that as it sits today, the nonprofit groups essentially don't pay rent. They have a responsibility for operating costs, and that's the disconnect that exists.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I am not versed in lease law, so I don't actually know how to proceed from there. But unfortunately, there's probably no quick fix because things would have to come forward to the public. All right. Okay. Thank you. That answers my question. And is there any debate on what's on the floor today? Nope. Okay. So if no further questions on board, I guess we can just move toward a vote.
I'll put the motion on the floor.
Oh, I thought Councillor Knack had already.
Oh, right, yeah. Sorry, my bad.
Oh, okay. All right. So let's just vote.
Copy as well.
Well, if you have a new motion, you're still able to do that.
No, I'll just we'll vote on. I'm happy to vote on Councillor Knack's motion.
All right. Sounds good. Let's go ahead and vote.
The vote's just being sent now.
Okay. Unless anyone's busy on Twitter, please vote.
We have all the votes.
Okay. Display the votes, please. And that is carried. Okay, and that is a conclusion to the items for debate. What we've got now is a motion to be made, and I'll need to pull up the wording for that, unless it's up on the screen.
We can put that on the screen for you.
That would be great. Thank you. And it says that administration provide a report to committee summarizing the bylaw amendments that would be required. You're moving it around on me. That would be required to create a business license category permitting the indoor consumption of shisha, including the following conditions: no minors permitted in designated smoking areas, physically separated smoking area that prevents smoke from entering the remainder of the premises, and no food or drink service within the smoking area, and finally, mandatory signage identifying smoking areas. And that is a motion. Is there any debate on the motion? We have speakers, so maybe we will hear from the speakers first, and then we will move on. So, and I've lost my speakers list. It's somewhere in my pile of papers, and it is gone. Clerks, if you can help out a little bit. Oh, here we go. Malat Belit, and please tell me if I pronounced your name correctly. You have 5 minutes.
Yeah, that was pretty close. Good morning. I would like to start off by saying thank you for allowing me the opportunity to speak and voice my concern regarding the current shisha ban. My name is Mahala Balet. I'm the manager at 117 Lounge, a business deeply affected by this ban. My intention today is to address the importance of shisha lounges from a cultural point of view. Shisha has been consumed for 100 years around the world and has a significant role in social gathering in my native country, Ethiopia, Africa, the Middle East, and East Asia. In many Western cultures, the social mechanism most utilized is alcohol, but that is not the case with mine and so many other cultures. During the holiday after dinner, adults usually gather for shisha. I'm sure most of you can relate and would compare this with a glass of wine or a nightcap. With that being said, I don't believe people will stop consuming shisha just because shisha lounges are no longer operational. It will only drive the people to consume hookah within their homes. I have several friends who are young parents who are usually to a nearby shisha lounges after work or on the weekend, who have now changed course. Since this ban has been in effect, many people have begun hosting gatherings in their homes, unfortunately with children and no proper ventilation. Instead of lounges where only consenting adults who choose to consume will be exposed. Shisha lounges for many years didn't only help families and members of our community come together, but also provided small business owners who are a majority immigrants opportunities to provide for their families, and many Edmontonians like myself with employment. I urge you to reconsider your stance on complete shisha ban, but instead work with the community to find middle ground that will address the health concerns with allowing the community to continue to practice our cultures. Sorry, I'm a bit nervous. That was a little shaky.
You did great, and we will now move on to Mohammed El Turk from the Edmonton Hookah Cultural Committee.
Hello, everyone. Yes, as Malhit mentioned, we're trying to address this issue. We're trying to get to a point to reduce the risk of people smoking at home. As a matter of fact, I got lots of phone calls, people asking when we're going to be opening, and lots of them, they're experiencing that some of them, they had to put some ventilation system in, like, sort of a heater in their garage to prevent smoking indoor around the kids. This is the issue that we're trying to work with the city to just have a safe and safely environment for smokers and to prevent non-smoker from being in. I know we're all in the same boat right now with this COVID things. Everybody's getting hurt, but we're humbly requesting actually to come up with a solution with the city admin and the councillors to create some establishments and facilities where people can come and just smoke and practice their shisha enjoyment away from kids or away from their families. And have no harm on anybody else. We suffered since March. I'm one of the owner. I'm the owner of Sultan Palace, one of the shisha owners here in Edmonton, and we suffered since March with this closure. I know, as I mentioned earlier, everybody has suffered the same, not just us. But we're humbly requesting to come up with a solution after this pandemic thing, to have a better environment, better atmosphere, better place where actually we can prevent non-smokers from being in, and smokers can come in. Same like cigar lounges where people go and smoke their cigars. I've been invited a couple times to one. There's one in Enoch by the casino, and that's when we came up with the idea of the ventilation system and all the requirement that you proposed earlier. I think that's a fair requirement from the city for ventilation. I know most of the shisha places in Edmonton, they did install that ventilation system when it was requested from them. But also, if the idea of separating it, like if someone has a big space that he need to separate the shisha from smokers from non-shisha smokers, also that's a doable suggestion where we can do. I think culturally that's I'm one of the shisha smokers, and I did the same thing where I'm using my garage right now not to smoke inside the house because I have 2 kids and I don't want to be around them with no ventilation inside the house. So I'm like as I said, that we're humbly looking. All the group are looking forward to have a fair decision from the city admin and the councillors to come up with a solution so we can be all on the same page and just keep going after this pandemic thing. Thank you very much for letting me speak, and if you have any questions, I'm ready to answer.
All right, thank you very much. We will now move on to Jarrett Campbell, also from the Edmonton Hookah Cultural Committee.
Hello, and thank you for having me here. Like Councillor Paquette mentioned, I'm representing the Edmonton Hookah Cultural Committee. This group approached me last year. They were concerned about obviously the ban, and after looking into the file, I would say that I found issues with the consultation that was done in advance of that, and found that I had some concerns around how City Council felt fairly comfortable doing a bit of a cultural inquiry to determine if this in fact was an important cultural practice. So I decided to take the file on. I'm going to make a few arguments. The first one, of course, is cultural accommodation. I think it's clear that the communities that find this important are a particular group of Edmontonians. Some of these communities have been in Edmonton for a long time. Some of them haven't. But it doesn't, it's not probably controversial to note that these particular communities do not engage with the civic level of government in a way that other communities do. Council and senior administration, much of administration doesn't look like these communities. They don't come from these communities, and because of that, I think there are issues with how the city of Edmonton engages with these communities, and I think I saw that, or at least I heard one side of the story, and I'm sure you're familiar with the term gatekeeping. Seemed like there was maybe a little bit of that going on. So I do believe there is a sort of cultural factor that does need to be considered. Second of all, I would like to talk a little bit about sort of public health and personal responsibility. This isn't an easy sort of balance to find, but we do find that City Council is often asked to balance public health with the ability for the citizens of Edmonton to sort of choose the activities they want to participate in. We see this, in a lot of different places. The conversation that council had about the speed limits, right? It's a faster speed limit helps us get around, and a slower speed limit would obviously, from a purely public health perspective, be desirable. And ultimately, City Council found a balance, right? They didn't choose the slowest option, despite the fact that there will undoubtedly be a negative public health aspect to that. If you were to look at the public health effects of alcohol, I think that, if you look at alcohol, it is arguably the single substance that would cause the most harm to our society, both on an individual and a sort of collective level. City council is not banning alcohol. In fact, an outside observer would find it fairly easy to believe that city council would encourage the citizens of Edmonton to drink more alcohol. They may ask that alcohol has been distilled or brewed in Edmonton, but it's certainly far from a ban. And there's all sorts of other issues. Motorcycles are incredibly dangerous. Every year, a bunch of young Edmontonians with a bright future, many years ahead of them, die in motorcycle accidents. I never heard anybody suggest we should ban motorcycles. So I do believe there's a balance, right? And I think that when I looked at the past debate, it was all about, well, what about the folks that choose not to smoke, right? And the employees. And I think that's fair. I think that this motion redresses that. But I don't think we should be blind to the fact that, again, speaking to, the problems around alcohol, that a promotion of alcohol culture is going to do the same thing. It's going to have innocent bystanders. And again, we aren't doing anything about that, or we're doing very little in that respect. So, it's cultural accommodation, it's consistency with other practices around public health, and also sort of personal responsibility, giving people that opportunity. And one of the issues that the previous speaker spoke to was harm reduction. This is a very common thing. We may want to imagine a world where shisha is not consumed. That is something that, we can all maybe strive for at some point in the future, but that's not reality. That's not where we are right now. We are in a world where people consume shisha. And so we do have a bit of a choice. Do we want to take action to direct where that happens? And the speakers before me did a good, spoke to it well, right? The choice may not be that shisha is not consumed. It may be that it's now consumed in a living room. It's consumed in somebody's house without ventilation. And certainly, there's minors there. Certainly, if those were the two choices, we would prefer that to take place in a regulated facility with ventilation and with regulations. So, I'm not here to tell you that shisha is healthy or that it's something that we should encourage. I just believe that there is a strong case to be made for a better balance.
All right, thank you very much. Okay, so any questions for the speakers? I see Councillor Zadek may have a question or two. Go ahead.
Yeah, thanks. So I'm glad we're talking about this. I've been steadfast against the shisha ban every time this has come to council over the past 2 years or so. So it's great to have one last chance to talk about this, and I'm hopeful that there'll be some resolution, possibly with the reintroduction of shisha lounges in Edmonton. So to the speakers, I think you made compelling points, and of course you're all speaking in favor of revoking the ban. And of course, in the past, we've heard from speakers that are against it. So this is, I do recognize this is only one part of the argument we're hearing today, but a few of you made the points that as shisha has been banned in commercial establishments, we're seeing an increase in people smoking shisha in living rooms, potentially around children. Of course, that's hearsay, and we can't really measure that. But is that can someone just confirm that we're hearing that there's probably more children exposed to shisha smoke, ironically, because of the ban? Anyone can just say yes or no or elaborate.
I believe it is actually yes, especially with, like I mentioned, young adults who have children. It's not gonna stop. It's like I said, it's what they do. It's a cultural thing. It's like having wine with your friends. You gather, and if there's kids around. So yeah, I believe if more kids are exposed to it now.
Okay, so obviously smoking is unhealthy, whether it's tobacco or herbal product. And my understanding is that tobacco was never smoked, and if it was, it would be illegal in the shisha establishments. But there's some talk about ventilation. So the commercial shisha establishments that previously existed until they're banned, they did have ventilation systems in place previously, right?
Yes, and it was I believe a little while ago was also we had to add the amount, like we had to change it. So we spent a lot more money changing that as well.
Yeah, and then you made that investment and then weren't able to utilize that because shisha became banned. So I think that if shisha was reintroduced, though, minimum standards and air quality would have to be really enforced and brought forward. So thanks for bringing that in again. Moving on, there's been some analogies drawn to alcohol and our bars and that kind of thing. And even in the past, sort of like outside of nightclubs, it was talked about a lot how there could be fights and stuff. So anytime but when we saw police cars come to shisha lounges, it was sort of suggesting that these places are hotspots for trouble. I don't think that's the case, but I do think that could occur outside nightclubs and bars just as common. But going on with this sort of analogy about alcohol, the city of Edmonton has just allowed winter patios to be opened up on our streets into the winter, not just in the summer, on the argument that it adds vibrancy to our streets. People drinking alcohol, of course, they could just get a BLT or whatever kind of food they want. But I've noticed from being in shisha establishments and just as outreach to the shisha establishments in the Castle Downs area in Ward 3 that a lot of these places are quite vibrant on the inside. And I wouldn't mind one of our speakers that has the knowledge about sort of like these establishments to let the rest of the committee and those watching know a little bit more about these establishments, about how the voluntary entrance into them, the atmosphere inside, the type of interactions that people have from job interviews to business meetings to family gatherings. I don't know, I'm not trying to put words in your mouth, but these are the sort of things I wouldn't mind you hitting on just for the members of the committee that maybe have not been inside these establishments. Anyone can jump in on this. I got a minute left of questions, but
So shisha lounges it's an open space, quite big. When you walk in, it's a big group of people that are gathered. It's usually friends or even parents and kids. It's a family gatherings. It does feel more like a homey environment. It's not more like a club where people are standing. It's where people sit and have conversations. So I think you get that more of like a homey feeling from most places.
Thanks. And I'd imagine there's different atmospheres in different places. Some might be more like a Starbucks inside. Some are more like a nightclub. Okay, just moving on. I think the ban came into effect, I think it was this July. So we were in the middle of the pandemic then, and I was opposed to the ban based on impact to small business. But do we have any so some of these establishments have been able to flip into just providing food. I'm thinking of Sahara's Palace on Castle Downs Road. But can anyone provide information about the amount of unemployment that this has caused across the city of Edmonton?
We're one of the businesses that we tried to do a conversion. We tried to just serve food in the meantime during the pandemic without having the establishment open for people walking in or eating in. And we were unsuccessful that we actually get to a point that we shut down. And Sultan has been shut down since. We were not successful because, for a restaurant like Sultan Palace, we've been around since 2006, one of the first shisha places in Edmonton. And, everybody knows when you mention that name that this is an establishment for, shisha consuming people. And it wasn't meant as a restaurant. So it was hard for us to do the conversion. We were not successful. And I know most of the places, I don't want to mention names, but we get calls we chat between each other. And I know most of the places that tried to do it also were not successful, but they were trying to be they're trying to be able to pay some of the rent. I know some of them, they're getting a program from the landlord to help them compensate for the losses and reduce their rents till this pandemic thing is moved on. Some of us, our landlord refused to do anything to help us. I'm one of them that actually I wasn't successful with my landlord. So so it's hard, but we're just trying to move on and just pass through this pandemic thing, and just we're just looking for the light down the road to hope that there's gonna be any hope for us to keep existing and not to lose our savings and life and everything, and trying to find something else. So It is hard. I know some they're trying, some they're just cut down in their employments. They're just doing it themselves, but most of the other places were not successful. So they were forced to just shut their doors down till something come up.
Okay, thank you very much. We will now move on to Councillor McKean. And by the way, that hammering brings to mind a long summer of renovations. So go ahead, Councillor McKean.
Thank you very much. I wasn't going to jump in until Mr. Campbell brought up motorcycles, and so I feel like I have to. I kid, and I want to thank our speakers today and say I don't think and I confirm that Councillor Zadok has been a strong advocate for shisha business, and I've probably been one of the stronger voices on the other side. Largely because I've been around long enough and went through the smoking bylaw wars. And I would say my major concern, along with some public health stuff, obviously, but the other major concern is keeping a level playing field and not opening up a bag of snakes again. So, Mr. Campbell, is it your personal view that we could do this accommodation without having coffee shops and restaurants wanting to have smoking rooms for cigarettes, pipes, and cigars? And we would, to me, that would be perhaps a step backward in our overall goals about reducing the number of young people and people in general who smoke.
Yeah, absolutely. And you bring up a good point, right? Is this, how do we propose taking a consistent stance between, the consumption of herbal shisha, the consumption, like you mentioned, of tobacco. Once we go down this path, the consumption of cannabis may come to light as well. And I think that, there's not sort of an easy, line in the sand. I do think that with shisha, it being, sort of herbal, it being sort of an important aspect of a number of sort of cultures, subcultures in Edmonton, that, you finding an exact solution or a nice, easy, bright line is probably not available. But I think that on the merits, this would stand up because of those two reasons. It's herbal, it's not tobacco, and it's cultural. But this may be something that comes back to City Council and be prepared for that, right? As we have conversations around, again, personal responsibility and accommodation, we may find that, hey, what, if somebody chooses to smoke shisha, how, and no one else is negatively affected, quote unquote, how do we take the same stance against tobacco or cannabis or what have you? So I think in this particular case, there are a couple nuances that lend itself to allowing for this rule change, without necessarily opening the door to a wholesale rule change. But I do believe that there is an argument there around personal responsibility, and that is just something we should be cognizant of.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, I think that is if you were to ask a politician what the most difficult part of their job is, and that's nuance and trying to find that perfect balance. I'm somewhat open to this argument. I'm concerned about it, but I'm somewhat open to it. And it would seem to me you have in here no food or drink service within the smoking area. I would get rid of the word service so that we don't have what sort of you could then go up to a counter and get your food and coffee and take it back into the smoking room, and then you have a restaurant with smoking. And that would be a problem. I'm not totally opposed to this, but do you understand what I'm saying there, Mr. Campbell?
Specifically around food service?
Yeah.
Not necessarily, unless this is an argument made for sort of purely level playing field. Right. The reason, that there is this area is the primary focus of this is to remove sort of secondhand smoke. So, I think that's where that's coming from, right? So a individual may choose to, leave the smoking area, acquire their food or their drinks, bring it back in, again, all just making sort of choices on their own, and that a server will not be in that room. And I think that's
my point is that's a further nuance, and it starts to look a bit different. But that's the kind of thing that we'd have to struggle through. And we'll also be asking administration about. I think we'd have to have a non-stat public hearing on this because we heard a lot of voices on the other side, and I think we'd have to welcome them back in to have the full debate on this, which I'd welcome. But I'm out of time. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Councillor McKean. And I don't see any other questions on the board. Just to clarify, we're not talking about tobacco products, are we? Mr. Campbell?
No, I don't believe so. This would be modifying existing rules that also did not allow tobacco products.
Yeah. Okay.
But if you feel it may provide further clarity or better clarity to administration, that might be.
That was my question. Okay, so I don't see any other questions for our speakers. Thank you very much. Really appreciate you coming out and sharing your thoughts. We'll now move from you to administration. You're welcome to stick around and hear what we have to say to administration, and that's what we will do now. Okay, and we have Councillor Knack on the board. Go ahead.
Thank you. And since this is only a motion for a report to committee, I'm not actually going to bother really asking questions of admin. Just to the mover, to yourself, two questions. One, and I think bullet points 2 and 3 are meant to address this, but I just wanted to know your thoughts on maybe making it expressly clear in a 5th bullet point that something along the lines of working to eliminate any secondhand impacts to employees of shisha lounges, because I think that's the intent of points 2 and 3, which is to ensure there aren't going to be impacts. But that, to me, I think should be, I would have greater comfort making that clear, whether you feel comfortable doing it now or waiting until this report comes back to committee. I thought I'd pose the question to you now and get your thoughts.
It's a good question. If we want to make it explicit, I have no problem with that, because that is the intent.
I would feel better than making that very clear to be sent towards admin. So I would offer that either as an amendment or a friendly amendment to you for a 5th bullet point. So
yeah, we can throw a bullet down in there if that's friendly. Anyone have any objections? Nope. Okay. So let's consider that added.
Appreciate that. Thank you. And maybe actually, I don't know so much if it's a question, but maybe just very briefly speaking to it, because I'll support the motion. I think we should absolutely have the debate very comfortable for that. I just wanted to acknowledge or agree with Councillor McKean's perspective that I think there's a lot of nuance in bullet point 3, because if you're allowing even somebody to take in food to an area where that is allowed, that does, in my mind, very much open up that conversation of why then wouldn't you allow any restaurant or cafe to do that? So his comment was removing the word service. I'm not going to suggest that today. I'm just going to say it out loud that I think that is going to be a very important discussion, because I don't know why we would do it there and then not allow other restaurants to allow a smoking section. So I'm saying it out loud to everyone. That is, I'm happy to support this motion and have that discussion. I have a lot of concerns around that point, and I'd want to really think that through. So, but I appreciate you bringing it forward, and I'll support it as mentioned. Thank you.
Yeah, no, and that makes perfect sense. And it goes back to what is our actual, not just responsibility, but what is our authority to determine what choices people make in their lives if something's not illegal. So there's that consideration. And to answer your question, I also think about what if there was an unofficial outdoor patio somewhere, and then you just get into now you're trying to micromanage things to a degree that is unsustainable, would be my comment on that. But we do have more questions. Looks like Councillor Zadek is on the board. Go ahead.
Thanks. Yeah, to the mover. We heard from one of the speakers, and it's also reflective in my experience and engagement on this issue, that many of the users of shisha lounges, when they were operating, weren't, I want to be careful with my words because I know we tried to engage, but for whatever reason, the engagement didn't really sink into this community. And I know a lot of people were caught by surprise when the 1-year ban went in place, and then ultimately when there's the 1-year moratorium and all that. So I don't know if the motion, and I don't have suggested wording, but I'd want engagement to be somewhere in here, and targeted engagement with the people that were using these lounges. So I don't know. Are you acceptable to some type of amendment that would talk about engagement? And sort of not just the city posting something on Twitter. I mean, something that's going to actually get to the community.
I would say that that's probably the next step. If like this report is just, I mean, this is just sort of this is just asking for summarizing bylaw amendments that would be required. And after that, then maybe we have that debate or we have that engagement with folks, because we have something to work from, right?
Fair, and I won't push the point further, but I do think that in the crafting of the bylaw amendments, there could be some information found from engaging with folks in the industry, but more than just the industry, about sort of the norms and the existing air handling units and sort of the cost around some of those. But I'm sure that information can be acquired. I have full faith that administration will bring back something that researches all that. So moving on, I think. Yeah, you could respond to that, I suppose.
I was just going to say, I think they're old hands at this, but go ahead.
And so I'll speak to this. I'll support it. I don't think that's going to be a surprise for too many people. But on the cultural argument, I think that's a strong one, and it's particularly people from Middle Eastern cultures. But I would also suggest that it gives people from non-Middle Eastern cultures the opportunity to experience part of their culture. And I do think some of it goes well with food, and I don't really like the separation of food and shisha smoking. We got to protect the staff, but I think that if you're going to have a Turkish coffee at the same time, or you're going to have type of Lebanese dessert or whatever, any type of food, I think that they can be compatible. And not everyone that goes to a shisha place, there might be 1 or 2 people smoking it, and there might be a few other people there that are okay with the secondhand smoke, but actually would want to chew on a salad at the same time. So I'll flag that as a bit of a concern on my part, but also on the cultural arguments. Other parts of the world are big into shisha as well. I think in Eastern Europe, it's popular, and there's a lot of Eastern Europeans in Edmonton, particularly the new Canadians that are from those regions. So for multiple reasons, I think it's important to explore this, and I do agree that there's potentially a slippery slope, and with cannabis and all that, I don't think we want to go down that path, although I'd be open to a safe smoking establishment for cannabis if that was properly vetted and engaged with the community. But I think I've raised that before, and I don't know how much tolerance there is for that, but I think shisha, this is appropriate now. I think this is good, so I appreciate that the mover brought this back forward. Yeah, and I think I'll just end it there. So thank you.
All right. Thank you, Councillor Zadek. Councillor McKean, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I don't have a vote on this at this committee. And it doesn't look like this is a recommendation to council. But I would just like to say a couple things in favor and perhaps against. I'll start off with the against. We have gone at this several times in this committee in previous years, and an extension was given to the shisha lounges to tell them, you know, you've got months or maybe it was even a year to know that this will be a banned commercial activity in Edmonton. So it wasn't done without some accommodation. The other nuance here is that herbal or tobacco doesn't matter so far as the human health issues, according to expert testimony before this committee last time, that the herbal product was as damaging to the user and in secondhand smoke to anybody in the proximity. My concern, along with human health, I mean, I used to be a smoker, so I get it, right? and I'm interested in harm reduction. I really am. I think it's one of the reasons, the biggest reasons why I'm compelled to listen to this. But harm reduction is a program that it's a journey towards something ending, right? And I'm not sure this is the case here. But, and the other nuance, I think, is that I'm really interested in cultural accommodation. And I think we're, so we allow smudging in the library and in City Hall under certain conditions. So we have recognized in the case of our Indigenous friends and neighbors that we need to accommodate something that we wouldn't normally accommodate. So all those things make me question my thinking around this, and this old dog can still learn. But my major concern will remain that we do not open up a bag of snakes, as I said earlier, because the restaurants and coffee shops in this city went through a tough period of transition to no smoking, and many of them were deeply concerned. And then you heard stories later where actually they got new customers because people were returning to the bar or to the restaurant now that it was smoke-free. So my point is, this is a real complex thing. I don't mind us having another whack at it at all, but we would also have another, if we're going to change the bylaw, we'll have another public hearing. And, I guess I would caution the members of this committee and our speakers today that there will be people showing up who will be stridently opposed for human health reasons and for reasons of not promoting smoking in other way. Councillor Zadek talked about introducing this to other cultures, to Canadians perhaps, to go try shisha. Well, that would, believe me, that would feed the opposition, hearing that kind of argument. So it's complicated. I used to go to a cigar shop and we would smoke cigars in the back, and it was one of the best experiences in my life because it was a bunch of men, and it actually ended up being a very supportive community. So what am I saying? I understand the complexity. I don't want to be a hypocrite. I believe in harm reduction. There may be a way to thread the needle here so that there is some shisha business without opening up that bag of snakes I'm worried about. So I wanted to talk about this. It's been one that I've dealt with a lot in the past, and appreciated Councillor Zadek's comments and advocacy. And I wanted to say that too. So I'm sorry for talking that long, but it's complicated. Thank you.
It is complicated. And don't worry, St. Patrick's Day is coming before this report. Okay, so Councillor Henderson, go ahead.
I don't have a vote on this, but I think I probably wouldn't support it because I don't think there is a way to distinguish between this and smoking, which also has some cultural implications for some groups, particularly the Indigenous community. Tobacco is just as important culturally to them. Cannabis is just as important to the Rastafarian community. I think this same argument could be made. So I think we're being naive if we think this doesn't open up that whole question again. And I'm not sure that is the right way to be going, knowing how much blood and pain has gone into getting us this far on this question. And at a certain point, we're going to start bumping into provincial rules as well that make it even more complicated. So I think you can make a cultural argument for anything of this nature. And so if we do this, we need to be prepared to open up all of those questions. We cannot just open it up for shisha. I don't think there's a strong argument for that. And I don't. So if we're going to do it, we need to be prepared to open up that larger question. And I'm not. I don't think that would be a good thing, a good road for us to go down. understanding what it has taken to get to this point in terms of society moving on and getting comfortable with just a new way of being in terms of our relationship with these habits. So I see work happening here. I don't see this as not creating a fair amount of more work within administration and unknown, I think, for communities, which doesn't help anybody. And that's we bought ourselves a year to allow people to try and adapt. This is just going to keep that unknown going for who knows how long. Probably not to change anything. And I think usually it was the Brian Anderson's old comment about, well, information is always good and we have to have these debates, but we've had this debate. And we've had this debate in other forums, and I think opening it up again just prolongs the pain for everybody. And I'm not sure there's benefit in that. So committee can do what it does, but I just thought I'd say out loud that I think this is opening up a hornet's nest that is understanding it's painful, understand these changes were difficult all the way along, going back 20 years. But we have adapted, and people have got used to it, and the world has gone on. And I think this just prolongs that pain, and I think it's an ill-advised move to make. But it's up to you guys.
Okay, and thank you for that. Anyone else? No? Anyone to close?
If I may, something, please. We close this.
No, I'm sorry, your time has passed.
Oh, sorry about that.
No, that's okay. Understandable. Well, these are all very, very good points, actually. And it is a complex debate. And I wasn't actually on council for the most painful parts of these debates, so I don't have a burn response to it. But what I do see, though, is that we've got a lot of questions around cultural utility. We really cracked down hard with our cannabis regulations, which maybe there was a lot more fear there than was warranted, but it was good to be cautious at the outset. And I don't know what the end result of all of this will be. It could be that there is no sustainable or practical way to do this. It could be that there is. The question may have been explored, but from what I've gotten back from the communities affected, the vast majority of feedback has been that this is something that is important to them and that they miss. Whether it opens up other sort of issues, I don't know. I'm not wise enough to know. It may well open some things up. Can we have reasonable conversations about it? I think we can. But at the end of the day, really, this is just to see if there are bylaw amendments that would work. And it could be that there aren't. But I would feel like I wasn't being responsive to the community if I didn't ask the question. And that's where it lies for me, is just getting that last piece of information. It could be that for very good reasons, Councillor Henderson and Councillor McKean's positions will hold. It could also be that we find a new business class that actually works. And again, maybe getting too personal, but my mom died from lung cancer, lifelong smoker. I'm not a big fan of smoking, but that's not for me to judge. What is for me to judge in this situation is, do we have fair bylaws, and are they workable? And is it our job to stand in the way of that? Maybe on a moral level, I don't know. Is it our job to just not get in the way of legal business where people are making personal choices? That's another debate. This is simply a motion to explore bylaw amendments that might be required if we were to move in that direction. So that's it. If there's nothing else, we can vote.
We're just missing one vote. Councillor Zadok, please.
Yes.
And that's all the votes.
Okay, please display the vote. And that is carried unanimously. Okay, so didn't hear any councillor inquiries coming in earlier, and I didn't receive any as the chair. We don't have any private reports. Do we have any notice of motions without customary notice? Not hearing any. We are adjourned.
Mr. Chair, I have just a notice of motion.
Oh, you do have one. I didn't see it on my schedule. Sorry, go ahead.
So just, I may have the process wrong, but I'm not required to give a heads up for a notice of motion, and it's not one without customary notice. Yeah, so I'll drop it in the chat though. And I do not have the opportunity to introduce this per our procedures, but this is just the result of one of the memos that was received. So
you don't have to introduce a notice of motion. Go ahead.
The mayor write a letter to the provincial government on behalf of City Council to advocate for the reduction in regulations surrounding the city's ability to allow alcohol consumption in public parks outside of festivals and events. And I'll make that at next City Council.
All right. Thank you, Councillor Zadok. And we are adjourned.